You've tuned in to Unpause Your Life with Dr. Callie Estes and Dr. Tara Lynn Sell. Your access to success strategies and more to help you move onward and upward with your life. Listen in each week as they interview others who have really taken their essence to the next level and truly unpaused their life. Now here are your hosts, Dr. Callie Estes and Dr. Tara Lynn Sell.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. This is Dr. Callie Estes, and I am founder of the Addictions Academy, the Addictions Coach, and Rehab Rescue. Welcome to Unpause Your Life. This is a great podcast where we showcase people who have done something extraordinary with their life. I welcome you, and I hope you enjoy all of our guests.
On my way, found a reason to wake up another day, but they needed to show you.
Welcome to Unpause Your Life with Dr. Callie Estes of the Addictions Coach and the Addictions Academy, and my lovely Midwestern co-host,
Dr. Tara Lynn Sell from drtaralyn.com.
Man, I introduce you a new way every time on this show, don't I?
You do. It's awesome.
I love it. It's like things that just pop in my head. Here we go. So my next guest and Dr. Tara's next guest needs no introduction, but we'll introduce him anyway. Erik Coleman is a former NFL standout, active philanthropist, and sought-after sports analyst who uses his on-field experience, extensive knowledge of sports, and robust personality to bring new and exciting insight to fans young and old. He has a very unique story we're going to talk about today. He played for the Jets, the Falcons, and also the Lions. And we've got a Packer fan and, of course, a Cowboy fan on here, so this will be fun. Welcome, Erik Coleman.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be on the show today, and it's okay. I'm accepting of your Packers and your Cowboys. I'll accept that for today.
We'll accept your Jets influence as well.
Erik, I got to tell you how I became a Cowboy fan. I was a Raiders fan.
Okay.
And I married into a Cowboy family. And I said, I'm not a Cowboy fan. I don't like this. It's like a cult type deal. I'm a Raiders fan.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have an option. So my husband started buying me little jerseys and tops. And he's like, you look cute in blue and white. Look how nice you look. That's how I became a Cowboy fan, because I look cute in here.
That's a smart man right there.
Yep.
Well, I grew up a 49ers fan. My father was a Raiders fan, and I just wanted to go against him. So that was my growing up in football.
So let's jump right into it. So you're playing football. Tell us your backstory first, and then I'm going to ask you some football questions.
Okay. All right. So, I was born in Sacramento, California. My family, when I was 6 years old, we moved up to Spokane, Washington, with both parents. And I have an older sister and a younger brother. My sister's about 7 years older than me. And growing up was great. I was involved in a lot of sports, involved in the community. I had a lot of family around me. But, it was around the age of 11 that I discovered that my parents were using drugs. And, both my parents were addicted to crack cocaine. And I found some paraphernalia in their room one day and kind of lost it. And that was my introduction to drugs into my life. I went to my grandmother's house, who lived around the corner from me. During that year, my father left. I think my mom gave him an ultimatum to go into treatment or leave. So he took his car. I went before school. I kissed my father goodbye, got home from school, and he had packed up everything in our car and drove from Spokane, Washington to Sacramento. And I never heard from him for about 3 or 4 years. So during that time, my mother was battling her addiction. My sister had went to California as well to finish high school. And I was there with my younger brother, my mother, who was addicted to drugs. And she had a boyfriend who was kind of abusive. And it was rough. Times were very hard for me growing up. I tried to shield everything from my younger brother and keep him focused on school and doing the right thing. And it just really forced me to grow up and become a man at a very young age. So it was very tough growing up, to say the least.
Now, did you turn to drugs and alcohol because that was part of your heritage that way, or did you look at that and say, I want to do the opposite of that?
I actually looked at that situation and said, I would never be like this. I'll never do drugs. I don't want to be like my parents. And I just kind of use that as motivation. And, I tell kids that all the time, when I speak to younger kids, you can use it as an excuse, or you can use it as motivation to get out of your situation. And, fortunately for me, I had some good people around me. I had good family, coaches. I had sports to lean on, different things to take my attention off of the issues that was going on in my house. And I chose to go the right way. I followed my faith. I worked hard in sports. I did my schoolwork, and it was hard, and it was tempting to get into the other life. As I grew up and I got into high school, I had friends who smoked weed and sold drugs here and there, and they had money in their pockets, and I didn't have any money in my pocket. And, I remember saying to myself that I'm going to do this the right way. And in the long run, I'm going to be the one that's going to be successful. And that's kind of what happened. I had some friends who got into some trouble selling drugs. I stayed focused. I stayed away from them. I focused on playing football, focused on my grades. I got a scholarship to play football at Washington State University. And it was just really a blessing. My senior year, when I was actually getting recruited by different colleges, my mother was in prison. I lived with one of my friends' families. My brother went and lived with one of his friends' families, so we got separated. And there was a time where I was like, you know what, I don't want to do sports anymore. I don't want to play football. And I had a basketball coach that grabbed me and was like, he understood what was going on in my life. And he kind of told me, listen, stop feeling sorry for yourself. Get your grades together. Start focusing on football. You have a bright future ahead of you. And, along with some other people in my life that kind of helped guide me, I took that advice, and I put all my anger and my frustration into sports and ended up getting that scholarship. Thank the Lord. And, went off to college. My friend's father actually took me to college, and I had a successful career at Washington State University. So that was a great situation. A bad situation turned good for me. And, I'm one of the few that got out of that situation, but I'm convinced that it was, motivation through hard work. I had faith, and I didn't want to go down that path that my parents went down. I didn't want to go down the path that a lot of my friends' parents went down and that they followed as well. I'm really thankful for the good people in my life, and that everything worked out the right way.
Who's been your inspiration throughout all this? Have you found one person, or is it a cascade of people, or?
Yeah, there was a cascade of people. There were my friends. I had a friend named Billy Etter. His mother, when I was in high school, she would come pick me up for school every day. And I remember looking at their family and just saying, I want to be a normal family like this. I want to have a house. I want to have a wife, and just wear a suit to work. They gave me that motivation. My friend Tyler Black, who I actually lived with my senior year, when I lived with them, they had a beautiful home, but I had responsibility when I went there. I had to do chores. I had to get a job. I couldn't play sports unless my grades were good. And so that kind of inspired me to go on the right path. And it showed me what it takes to be successful. I also, I had cousins. One of my cousins was very successful. I looked up to him. There were a lot of people that were in my life that whether they knew it or not were motivating factors, and they really helped me stay on track.
It sounds like your key to success is kind of who you surround yourself with.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was taught at a young age, you hang around, you hang around 9 people, you're going to be the 10th. And so, when I did have those friends who were doing the wrong things or making bad decisions, I kind of separated myself from them. I would continue to be friends with them, but from afar. I wouldn't go out hanging out with them at night. I wouldn't go do the things that they did because I wanted to surround myself with successful people that were on the right path. And that's what I think sports really helped me do that. When you're an athlete, when you're playing football, when you're playing basketball, you don't really have time for all the outside distractions. And I think surrounding myself with a bunch of athletes, with a bunch of kids who were successful really helped me stay focused and keep my eye on what was important to me.
So what made you pick football over, say, basketball, baseball? What really honed you in on that sport specifically? And what was your position and why?
Well, it was kind of funny because in high school, football was probably, I thought I was going to blow the NBA. Basketball was my favorite sport. I was a point guard. But I stopped growing, and I wasn't as good at basketball as I probably thought I was. I love playing baseball as well. I played baseball in high school, but football kind of chose me. I remember being in homeroom in high school and receiving letters in homeroom, and it was like, Erik Coleman, we're looking, this is whatever university they're looking at me to play football for their college. I'm doing a great job. And I'm like, man, I didn't think I was that good at football. And then the letters kept coming and the accolades started coming. And the game of football really did choose me because I wasn't getting those letters in basketball or baseball. So the end of my junior year in high school, Washington State University, along with some other schools, offered me scholarships. And I accepted Washington State's. It was about an hour and a half away from home. I had some friends who went to school there. And I really just felt like it was a great family atmosphere and a great situation for me to walk into and pursue my goal of graduating college.
Okay. Let me ask you this question. So who were you drafted first with? Were you drafted first with the Falcons, the Lions, or the Jets?
I was drafted by the New York Jets.
What was that
in 2004.
What was that moment like? Because I watched that on TV, and I'm like, wow, that has got to be the coolest moment of your life when you get that phone call and you're like, holy shit, I'm in. What was that like?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. That was the best. Well, it was funny just to back up. When I was in college, I never really thought about playing in the NFL until I think my sophomore year when one of my roommates, Lamont Thompson, got drafted in the second round. And I looked at him and he was a lot better than me. But I said, I'm not that far off from him. And he's a second round pick. Maybe I can go. And then the following year, my buddy Marcus Trufant was drafted, with the 11th pick overall.
Wow. And
I said, man, I'm not as good as him, but I am pretty good. I'm close to him. Let me start working harder. So I started, spending extra time in the weight room, started watching film more and took the game more serious. And, at the end of my senior year, a lot of guys were getting recruited by agents to represent them. And all these agents were calling their phones and no agents were calling me. And I said, man, no agents are calling me. Let me call some agents. So I started calling agents and, trying to get them to pay for my training because I got invited to the NFL Combine.
Oh, wow.
And no one would pay for my training. Yeah, no one would pay for my training. And so what happened was I knew the trainer down in California.
Uh-huh.
He told me he would front me to train. And I used my uncle's 1982 Volkswagen. And I went down to Oakland, California, started training. And in the middle of my training, I finally got an agent to pay for my workouts. And, a lot of the guys who I was training with, they had a bunch of money. They were projected to be first round picks and, they had cars and all this stuff. And I was broke. I was from college. I was staying at an extended stay and I didn't know if I was going to get drafted. And, coming up to the draft, it was a funny situation because I was at my grandmother's house. No one was home. And, ESPN at the time had the draft and they played the first 3 rounds on Saturday and rounds 4 through 7 on Sunday. But after the 4th round, the draft coverage went from ESPN to ESPN2. And so, while watching, the 4th round ended and I was at my grandmother's house and the draft turned off and my grandmother didn't have ESPN2. So I couldn't watch the draft anymore. And I'm sitting there going crazy in her house, kind of getting emotional, like, man, am I going to get drafted? I want this so bad. And while I was sitting there, my phone rang. And it was a 516 area code. And I answered it. They said, this is, so-and-so from the New York Jets. And if the Falcons don't pick you with this pick, then we're going to draft you. And so I'm just sitting there patient. I don't have a television.
Wow.
And he said, welcome to the New York Jets. And so my heart sunk. I called my mom who was at her house. They were having a party at my house. I called her on the house phone while I was on the phone with the Jets still. And it hadn't shown up on television yet. So the Jets are talking to me. And all of a sudden I hear this roar on the other phone line. They announced it on television. And,
so cool.
And then after that call, I went up to my mom's house and, as soon as I pulled up in the parking lot, I just broke down and started crying. And, my family came out and hugged me. And it was the most amazing situation, the most amazing feeling in the world. You know, knowing, you know, what I came from, the tough times growing up, to be able to live out my dream and play in the NFL it was the best day of my life.
It really wasn't even your dream in the first place.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. You know, it was one of those things where I didn't think it was attainable. You know, I didn't think that I was within reach because I never knew anyone who played in the NFL, and I just loved the game of football.
Right.
And once I started meeting people and my friends started getting drafted, it was like it kind of became a reality. And so, you know, for it to happen was awesome.
Very cool. Hey, I got a 16-year-old over here that's just dying to ask you a couple questions. Would you mind?
Oh, not at all.
All right, here he is.
All right, so I got a few questions over here.
Okay.
So what was your favorite QB that you intercepted?
Oh, that's easy. So I have in my office, I have a huge picture. My wife blew it up. It was in Sports Illustrated. I got an interception on Tom Brady. And I played against Tom Brady for 4 years in his division, and we played twice a year. Sometimes we played the playoffs, and I beat him once. And on that game, I got the game-winning interception. And that's easily my favorite, one of my favorite moments, but definitely my favorite quarterback that I intercepted.
That's very cool. I'm not a Tom Brady fan. I'm like against the grain, so I like that.
That's a fun story. What else?
So
yeah, he's one of those guys that you hate, but you have to respect him because he's such a good player. Yeah.
what was your first training camp / OTAs like?
All right, so my rookie year, so OTAs happened before training camp, and that was kind of like the learning process. I remember when we had a strength coach named John Lott. He brought all the rookies together before practice, and he was just telling us how, you know, none of us are guaranteed a spot on the team except for Jonathan Vilma, who was the first round pick, and, you know, you guys will be lucky if you make the team. And pretty much by the end of that talk, all of us were feeling like we had no chance of making the team. So the only thing that we could do was go out there and work hard. And I really studied a lot just so I can show my talents. And it was a good experience. But when going into training camp, I want to say, like, I had played so well in OTAs that I was like second or third on the depth chart at safety. And the second day of training camp, the starting safety pulled a calf muscle. And so they put me into the starting lineup. And from that day forward, from the second day of training camp, as a rookie, you know, I never gave up that spot. So I went in, I started every game my rookie year. I broke a record. There's a thing called player performance pool. And based on where you're drafted, if you're a low draft pick, and based on the percentage of plays that you play during the season, you get a bonus. And so I knew nothing about this bonus, and I had played 98% of the snaps on defense of my rookie year. And so I got this bonus in March that doubled my salary, and I had no idea that it was coming. So my rookie year was a really special time for me. Herm Edwards gave me the opportunity to go in and start as a rookie, and it's probably the best year of my career, that first year. So that training camp for me as a rookie was definitely a great situation.
All right, so I got about two more.
One more.
All right, whatever. Were you ever cut or traded from the Jets or Falcons? If you were, what was your emotions when you got cut?
So when I was with the Jets, I did not. I signed a 4-year contract and became a free agent and signed with the Falcons. During my time with the Falcons, I had signed a 4-year deal, and after my 3rd year, I kind of saw the writing on the wall that, you know, that I was not a fit for them anymore. So I asked for my release, and they released me. So that was tough, but it was obviously I asked for it, so I was expecting it. The toughest one was my last year, which is my 9th year in the NFL, playing for the Detroit Lions. It was December 4th. And so we had like 3 or 4 games left in the season. It was a Tuesday, which is our day off. I was sitting in my apartment in Detroit, and I got a phone call, you know, from the management asking me to come in to the facility and bring my playbook. And I was like, what? You know, because I was playing pretty well, and I came in and they said that they're going to release me. You know, it was a crazy situation because you go from being like a captain on the team, one of the leaders, to they call you to come into the locker room and security meets you at your car. They escort you through the building that you've been in for 2 years. They take you by your locker to grab a couple of things. They take you by to talk to some coaches, and then they send everything to you in the mail. And that one was, I took that very hard, only because, I really wanted to play 10 years in the NFL. As a player, you always think that it's never going to end. And that reality for me, getting cut, not playing football anymore, was a tough one. I went into a depression for like 6 to 8 months. It was hard for me to be around, even for my family. My wife was, she was not happy. She told me one day I was mean to the kids. I was mean to her. Whenever someone brought up football, I would go dark, and I just didn't want to be around it. My whole identity was Erik Coleman, the football player. Everyone knew me as that person. And now that football's gone, what am I? And so that was a tough situation, but, thankfully, because I had a supportive wife, I had faith in God, that I got put on the right path. And, that's helping people with addiction right now and spreading the word. And I love where I'm at in my life right now.
Speaking of addiction, I've got a question for you. So I do a lot of work with the Eagles, and I shy from saying that because I'm from Philadelphia and I should be an Eagles fan. In the locker room, what do you see? Because I do a lot of work with the guys when they get addicted to the opiates and benzos and all that other nonsense, and the cannabis. What do you see in the locker room in terms of addiction, or what have you seen? And what are the coaches and unions doing to combat that?
Well, that's a tough situation. So, in the locker rooms, you have to remember that there are 53 guys on the team that are fighting for spots, and they're fighting for their jobs, for their paychecks, for their families. And during a season, you don't want to give someone else an opportunity to get your job. Just like when I was a rookie, when that player pulled his calf muscle and gave me the opportunity as a rookie, I took his place. And eventually he got cut and didn't have a job anymore. So as a player, you don't want that to happen. You don't want anyone else to get that chance. So you're going to do whatever it takes to stay on the field. And whether that means, taking Vicodin before practice or before a game, or getting a shot of Toradol, before you go out and play, you're going to do whatever you can to be out in the field. Football is a game where it has a 100% injury rate. At the end of the season, everyone on the field, everyone who is playing is hurt. They're fighting through some type of injury. And so a lot of the drug use, I can see where, it can overpower people. When I played on one of the teams, before a game, there would be doctors walking around with Gatorade cups full of, Gatorade cups, and they all had pills in them. And they'd be walking around, you need a pill, you need a pill, walking around asking people if they need a pill to get through the game. And what happens a lot of the times is these players, say one day I hurt my ankle and I actually do need a pill. So I'll take that pill and I go out and have a great game. Well, I had a great game last time when I took that pill, so I'm going to take it again this week. And it just becomes a routine. As crazy as it sounds, that happens a lot.
Right.
It becomes part of your routine. I'm going to take this pill and I'm going to play this game. And before you know it, you're done playing football and you still want the pills. And so, that becomes a big problem for players just because out of routine, they want to do whatever it takes to stay on the field. And, to be frank with you, a lot of the players feel like they're racehorses, where if they're not playing, then they're going to get sent out to the pasture. And so you're going to do whatever it takes.
The only experience I have is clearly not the same as yours, but on the high school football field. And so my son's high school went to playoffs and things. By the end, they were all injured, ragtag team. I can't imagine the type of beating that a body would go through in the NFL. And so it sounds like those pills are kind of like wearing your lucky socks. Like it worked this time, so I'm going to wear my lucky socks again. And pretty soon you can't go without wearing your lucky socks, right?
Yeah. And it's sad, it's sad that it comes to that, but, a lot of times that is the case. But, and you have to also remember that guys are playing through so much pain, so whether you're doing it as your lucky socks or not, sometimes you have to take it if you want to stay on the field. And if you don't play, what happened to me in Atlanta, I got hit by one of my teammates. I sprained my MCL, and I had to miss 3 games. During that time, I gave someone else an opportunity. They had the best 3-game stretch. You know, they had all kinds of interceptions. We went on a 3-game winning streak. And when it was time for me to come back from my injuries, my coach said, you know what, we're going to stick with him and ride it out with him. And I never got my spot back. And that's, you know, after that season, you know, I had to ask for my release because I saw the writing on the wall. And so that was a situation to where if I could have played through it, I never would have gave him an opportunity to take my job. And who knows how long I would have been playing there. So it's a tough competitive sport. And, you know, I don't see that going away anytime soon.
Now, how did you get into the analyst side? I know that's like a coveted position. Once you finish playing, hang up your cleat, so to speak, and say, all right, I'm going to still be in football, but I'm on the other side. How did you get into it? And more importantly, do you like it?
Well, I got into it when I played for the Jets when I was a rookie. You know, before blogs were even big, I did a rookie blog where I did a diary every week about my experience through that week. So I got into it that way. And then when I was in Atlanta, I did an internship with the NBC affiliate on my days off. I would go into the studio. I would learn how to sit at a desk. I would learn how to read a teleprompter, how to create my own stories. And that was a great experience for me. And after that, I got my own show in Atlanta where I was interviewing my teammates on Fridays. So I would go around the locker room and, you know, it was a lighthearted show. It's called Rolling with Coleman. And it was on the Falcons website. Yeah, it was pretty cool. We would go around and say, you know, like, who's the worst dressed on the team? And everyone would make fun of, you know, certain players of the team. And it was a lot of fun. But that's kind of how I got started. And then once I was done playing, one of the PR people with the Jets, who I had dealt with when I was a player, told one of the networks, you know, Erik Coleman, I think, is living in New York. You should give him a call. And so Sportsnet New York gave me a call, and they asked me to come in and do a show. And they said, you know, Erik, you know, do you want to come in and do a show? And at that time, that was kind of my depression period where I didn't want anything to do with football. You know, my wife was like, you should go into television. And I was like, no, I hate football right now. I don't want anything to do with it. So they ended up calling me, and I said yes. So I went into the studio. I did the show. I barely knew anyone on the Jets because I hadn't watched football that season, but I had a great time on the show. And they asked me to come back the next week. And so I came back the next week, and I did a great job. And they said, you know, Erik, we want to keep you on this position. Do you want to stay on for the year?
Oh, wow.
And I was thankful for the opportunity. So I became the analyst at SNY, one of the key guys. So went through the whole season, and I found a love for it. I found my love for the game again. You know, it was me being able to break down the game. You know, I played safety, so I was a quarterback of the defense. And my job was to understand how the offense was going to attack us, put our defenders in the best situation to win. And that's kind of what I do when I watch the game now. I look at it from that perspective. And for me to be able to analyze that and to break it down in the layman's terms for the viewers it's a fun opportunity for me. You know, I get to watch film as if I was a player. I get to prepare. I get to, you know, be involved in the game, but not put my body at risk anymore. So I love it. I love being an analyst.
And more importantly, your wife loves you because you're still bringing home a paycheck.
Absolutely. And she's happy because I'm out of the house too.
Yeah.
You know, when I was done playing football, I was sitting around the house a lot. And, you know, it was cute at first. You know, she's like, "Oh, I love having you around." But then you know, it turned into, you know, when are you leaving and going to work?
I completely, I understand your wife. My husband's a musician, and he came off a tour with Eriks Sardinas, was a national, and he was supposed to go overseas, and they canceled part of the overseas tours, and he's like, I'm going to be home. I'm like, awesome. And after like 3 days, I'm like, you got to go. You got to go somewhere. I can't deal with this.
Yep.
I get it.
Hey, what's the biggest advice you'd give to a kid who wants to play college or pro football?
The biggest advice I would give would be that there are going to be a lot of sacrifices that you have to make, you know, whether it be your diet, you know, who you hang out with, what you do in your spare time. You have to be the hardest working person in the room, in every room that you step into. And also, you know, that's not going to be enough. You're going to have to spend your extra time working on that craft. You almost have to be obsessed with what you're going after if you want to be successful. And then, you know, there's a lot of luck that's involved in it, but be the hardest worker. You know, put everything you got into what you want, and some great things will come out of it. But at the same time, you know, you have to handle your books, you have to handle your schoolwork, and do that because, you know, I played 9 years in the NFL, and after I was done, I had to go back on what I went to school for. So, you know, no matter if you make it to that goal or not, you still have to fall back on your education at some point. So, you know, be the hardest worker, stay dedicated to your craft, but also handle your business in school. That'd be my advice.
That's great advice.
Now you've done a lot
another
of
quote.
Okay.
One more quote that I always live by is, "Don't sacrifice what you want most for what you want now."
Oh, that's a great quote. I'm gonna have to put that on Facebook. All right. So you've done a lot of badass things. But we always ask everybody at the end.
You ask everybody.
I ask
never
everybody.
Get to ask the question. You do it.
Well, you want to ask it this time?
No, go ahead. No, I'm scoring.
All right. What is the most badass thing you've ever done? Maybe even something nobody else knows about.
The most badass thing. So I'm gonna go back to a football thing then.
All right.
So for the one of the most badass things I've ever done was my first ever NFL game. I played against the Cincinnati Bengals, and we were up by 2 touchdowns, and I was covering Chad Johnson. He runs down to throw a deep ball on me, and he beats me for a touchdown. And at that time, you know, I thought my whole career was over. Thought my teammates were going to be mad at me. I came to the sideline and said, "Pick your head up." And we ended up going back out on the field. We were up by 1 touchdown at the end of the game. I'm covering Chad Johnson again. Of course, they go back to the rookie who they just beat for a touchdown. They throw it to me again. I jumped in front of it, intercepted it, and we won the game.
Awesome.
So that was probably the most badass thing I've ever done.
That is pretty badass. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Well, it's a pleasure having you on. I want to give you a chance to plug what you're doing in the addictions world. That way you can feel free to disclose what you want to disclose. Tell us how people can reach you, how they can get in touch for help if they have problems or football questions. And I'll give you the floor for that.
Okay, so I'm working in addiction and recovery. I partnered up with Seasons Malibu to raise awareness about addiction and try to get NFL players and professional athletes the best help that they can get. You know, Seasons is a great facility. They have the top of the line care. They have doctors at every level of care. Beautiful facilities in Malibu, and I thought it was a great fit for NFL players and professional athletes, actors, and so that's what I've been doing recently. You know, addiction has a stigma about it, and people are ashamed of addiction, and I just want to raise awareness that there are people out there that are here to help you. There are others that are in your same situation, and there are a lot of people who have overcome their addictions and become successful in life. So, you know, there is help out there. You know, if anyone needs anything, if I can direct them in the right place, I'm on Twitter at Erik Coleman. That's Erik with a K. At Erik Coleman on Instagram is the same thing. And I'm really just here to help.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you coming on, and we'll put all that stuff up with the podcast so that they can reach you directly if they have any questions or want to get in touch or need help, more importantly.
Okay, great. I appreciate that.
Love your story, Erik. It was awesome.
Thank you. I hope I gave you guys a good interview.
You did. Don't go anywhere. We're going to close it out. You've been listening to Unpause Your Life with Dr. Callie Estes, Dr. Terrelyn Sell from the Midwest.
Oh, and my special guest star, Caden.
Caden, who's going to be drafted by the NFL at some point, right?
He will.
Awesome.
Wait.
Hey, good luck.
7th round stud.
And our special guest, Erik Coleman. Thank you for listening to Unpause Your Life. Hey everyone, thanks again for listening. I really hope you enjoyed the show today. Head on over to iTunes and Apple Podcasts and leave a comment or review of what you think. Or contact us at 1-800-706-0318. If you want to be on our show, feel free to email or call. And if you have a topic, feel free to email or call as well.
Thanks for listening to Unpause Your Life. For show notes and more, head on over to unpauseyourlife.com.
Big shout out to recoveryinnovators.com for help producing this show. Thank you, guys.
I took a walk down the long road where they said that I shouldn't go. On my way found a reason to wake up another day. But they needed to show you all the things that you won't do. Find faith or religion, but nothing to show for it. No need to escape in love with my pain. I may be weak, but I'm alive, still alive, and I won't be bound by your mistake. No, I won't be your enemy, trapped at the gate. Bring me to life, put me to death. Just give me something that's just not so hard to believe. To believe. To believe. I took a walk down the dark road where they said that I shouldn't go. I knew the dangers of flying. Now I'm so far from solid ground. But they needed to show you all the things that you won't do. Find faith or religion, but nothing to show for it. No need to escape in love with my pain. I may be weak, but I'm alive, still alive, and I won't be bound by your mistake. No, I won't be your enemy, trapped at the gate. Bring me to life, put me to death. Just give me something that's